I have some questions for you. The first of them is that someone from outside, it looks like the COVID pandemic triggered a lot of potential in universities that universities didn't know they have. It's like a hidden asset that was suddenly revealed by the pandemic. How correct is this assessment, and how did the pandemic actually help universities developing their potential for pedagogical innovation, in your opinion?
Well, universities have been working on pedagogical innovation for years and years and years. I remember early 2000s, we were experimenting with different digital technologies, but universities do things slowly. And I think sometimes what happens is that the university, those in the university are so busy that you get involved in what's actually happening and the innovation slows down. Well, when you have a COVID experience like we had, Ireland is a good example. 70% of staff in Ireland never taught online before March the 20th, when every university went online. And to be honest, I think the universities that had been building their digital capacity in a very considered way, I think they did very well. I think they were able to cope better with what happened. And I think those that had been trying to, had been slower at doing it, I think they had much bigger problems. I think though that we have a big job to do now, because if 70% of people, and I talk about the Irish situation, never taught online, their view of what online teaching is an emergency situation, which wasn't perhaps as good as it could be. So now we have to work and say, that was fine, it got you over the line. And now we have a huge job to do to say, well, let's now make what we're able to do better. And I think so much good came out of COVID. Lots of things weren't so good, but a huge amount of good came out of COVID, in that a lot of those that didn't believe that technology would work, a lot of those that didn't adopt technology had to adopt technology. So we actually got a huge turn saying, well, actually, it can work. And I think this is now why I think the Nova having a strategy now is brilliant, because you're trying to build on that momentum post-COVID.
Excellent. But COVID is now gone. And in your answer, you said that possibly the key element of your answer was that universities think, but they think slow. And COVID actually speed up the process. Now that COVID is not there anymore, what are the hopes that universities keep the pace of fast thinking? In other words, what are the real challenges now, given that universities gained that pace? What is the limit? What is the horizon? What are the challenges now?
Well, I'll come to the challenge, but the first thing I think that every university should do, and I think it should be integrated as part of the strategy development of Nova, is to take stock. What have we learned from COVID in terms of teaching and learning? What really, really worked? What didn't work? Build on what worked as the basis for the strategy going forward. And one of the things I asked them this morning, the schools this morning, was had they taken that time to reflect as a faculty or as a department about what had happened, what worked, why it worked, all the good things. And they hadn't. But the strategy, I think, is going to give them the opportunity to capture that, which is really good. And I think big areas like the fact that students don't necessarily now have to be in the big lecture theatres. I think students can, I think the choices for students, I think, are much greater. And one of the big impacts, I think, that the move to sort of hybrid environments and that has actually advantaged a lot of people, especially those with disabilities, that they don't now have to be in the room, but can be in the room. And in terms of assessment, we had, was it about 13,000 every year individual assessment opportunities that had to be negotiated because of a particular needs of particular students. And because we were now able to use technology and it was valid and it was accepted, we don't have to negotiate those 13,000 different individual assessment things anymore. So there's huge things, but we need to stop, take stock, and find out what works, why it worked, and what needs to be built on. Strategy will do it, I hope.
Hopefully so. Hopefully so. Now, the thing is, you've had this extensive experience with universities in the Irish higher education system. And you are kindly working with us in the past few months, not only producing a webinar, but guiding some focus groups and with this workshop and brainstorm with our staff. Given your relatively short but intense experience with Nova, how would you compare that with the work that you had developed in Ireland? What are the similarities? Are there any specific differences that caught your attention?
Yeah, I think there's lots of similarities. I think it was obvious this morning at when the schools sort of showcased their innovations. There's huge amount of excellent innovations that are actually happening across all the schools. I think in Ireland what has developed stronger is a centre for teaching, an institutional centre for teaching and learning that actually links in with all of the schools and tackles some of the issues in schools collectively. So for example, assessment. All the schools are dealing with it. All the context needs to be dealt with. But you can actually get very focused. You have people that are working focused on continual teaching and learning enhancement, making the connection, bringing the people together and building that. And one of the recommendations for the strategy is to consider that sharing of experience and a sort of a common place where people can go to share good case studies, approaches, or have opportunities for staff across schools to come and talk. That's what these centres in Ireland have actually brought. And I think there's not that established. Some of your schools have individual sort of bits, but there's not that central place with responsibility for that interface between the staff and the sort of teaching and learning pedagogue, the educational developers, the technology developers. Your role as now having the first role as sort of having an education is the first step, but education needs its place to be able to bring all of that learning together. And I think in doing that, there's a shared, you're better together than you are individually, and also stops duplication of effort. There's lots of similar things happening. So individuals are spending time developing things from scratch, whereas if you were all said, we're all interested in this development, there's a resource implication there that says, well, actually, if we started working on it together and got so far, and then we can contextualize it, I think it would be good. But a lot of the issues that the teachers have are still the same. Recognition for teaching vis-a-vis research, valued of teaching, recognizing the fact that I'm an innovator, all of these things a lot of the conversations are the same. Career progression, linking teaching and learning, enhancement.
Topics are common.
Absolutely common, yeah.
So, but that's what we're hoping for, that with this initiative and the development of a proper strategy, things will move in the right direction. And that's exactly my next question. It's, what would you expect from this eventually right direction that we were taking? How would you envisage the main differences at Nova University 3 years from now, once you heard all their anxieties, all their capacities, competences, and the challenges? Where do you think we can be 3 years from now? What is the expectations? What can we honestly expect from this program?
Well, I believe that you have the staff and the expertise in Nova already to do an awful lot of what you want to do. And I think if over the next 3 years, and it sounds weird, you build on building connectedness working on communication, sharing of practice, I think the rewards from that will be unbelievable. I really do. I believe you've got all the bits there. All you have to do is align them so that everybody knows what's happening, knows how they can connect with each other and build on what's already actually starting from the ground up anyway. But you're going to need real senior leadership. The leadership have got to talk about teaching and learning is important. And the reason it is, because you've got 20,018 students according to your website, so that's 20,018 reasons to make sure that every one of them know that every member of NOVA thinks teaching is important and learning is important at NOVA. That's what the strategy is going to do.
Hopefully so.
Yeah.
Terry, thank you for your wise words and optimistic words as well, because I think that wisdom is as important as optimism and the energy to make it happen. Thank you so much for being here.